back to the Smart Girl Politics podcast. I am Teri Christoph, joined for our GenXish segment, episode, whatever we want to call it. As always, Fingers Malloy, straight out of Indiana. How are things, Fingers? How's your isolation going?
Quite well right now. I'm sitting outside in the backyard. I don't know if you can hear all of my neighbors who have been cooped up for weeks now. It's a nice day, so you're hearing yard machines that they weren't running 15 minutes ago, chainsaws, lawnmowers. But as soon as I decided to come out here and record some audio, now everybody's out. But I'm out here smoking a cigar, having a beer, and talking to you, Teri. Can't get any better than that.
I know. It sounds like pure suburbia right there. Mm-hmm. Suburban bliss.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
If there's one good thing about this whole mess of a situation, I guess, is that at least there's nice weather to go and escape your house. And I mean, it's coming anyway. It's not consistent here where I am in Northern Virginia, but it's kind of trending towards nicer weather. So that helps a little bit, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, when I was in self-quarantine because of the whole CPAC mess, it was snowing here. So talk about a miserable experience when you're locked in a room looking outside, at least hoping for some nice weather, and it's snowing. But of course, first world problems, things could be much worse. So I will stop my belly aching. I didn't actually have the virus, so, it could have been a lot worse.
Did you? Like, that's the thing. Before we get into that thought, though, I do want to say that we do have a sponsor this week, BetterHelp, and I will talk about them a little bit later, but just wanted to give a shout out because we love having sponsors. I was thinking about whether, is it possible that, we were some of those non-symptomatic people, and that were they to test us to see if we had the antibodies, that we'd be positive?
I would be very interested to find that out, and when that test becomes much more available to the general public, and if you can just run down to the local pharmacy or whatever, if that's even going to be possible. I don't know how they're going to roll that out, or if you're going to have a doctor's prescription or doctor's order for that test. But I know people in my family who they had all the symptoms back in January and went to the doctor and got a flu test. And the doctor said, well, I don't know what it is, but it's not the flu. But it was all the symptoms were there.
Yeah.
So I would be interested to see if I've been exposed to it, if other family members have been exposed to it. I'm still not sold on the testing, the regular tests, if they're 100% accurate. You're hearing about these false positives, and I was going to say,
in which direction? False positives?
False positives, false negatives, both. False negative, not false positive. I think about most of the stories I've heard have been false negatives, but
that's scary.
But I've got a relative that they treated her for a week as though she had it. She had all the symptoms, tested negative for the flu. She told me that she had the body aches, shortness of breath, getting up to go to the bathroom or use the shower. And then when the test came back a week later and she still had the symptoms, it came back negative. So
Really?
Yeah, so these are just crazy times we're living in.
It's insane, and I think my family in the past week has gone from, well, this is a novel, cool thing, and we're all together, and this is great, to ugh.
Yeah.
I mean, and we are fortunate, and, we have some space to, we have a yard, we have some room to move out. There's people who are in small apartments, a lot of people crammed into a small space. They don't have the luxury of actually going to a room and getting away from other people. But it kind of did slip over the line from, all right, we got this. We're going to beat this into kind of okay, now this is the new normal for a while, and we got to figure out ways to deal with it. I did mention to you that my daughter is Instacarting, but I think that might be winding down. I was helping her a little bit with that.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I know, but it's kind of crazy to go out and see like people. It's like how they will not come near you, how they will steer like 3 aisles away so that they don't have to come in contact with you.
Oh, and God forbid anyone coughs within a 30-foot radius. I mean, I was in a store a couple of weeks ago at a Walmart neighborhood grocery store these are popping up where it's just groceries, like a Walmart neighborhood market. And this I'm guessing 25-year-old clerk was walking through. She had her apron on and she coughed into her elbow, and there, there were about 8 of us around her, and everybody's heads just shot her a look like, oh no, she's got the plague, and couldn't get away from her fast enough.
And it's peak allergy season, so everybody's got a runny nose and a little bit of a cough. So it's kind of funny. I had to go to Target to pick up a prescription earlier, and there was this woman. I mean, she was in full getup. She had the mask, and I get it. I completely get why she did it. But she's running as fast as she can to get through the aisles and out of Target. Like is this the new thing? Is to like you have to just minimize the amount of time that you're in there. She was running at full speed. She was also yelling at her husband too, which was kind of, I get that as well. I get it. These are putting some strains on some relationships, but she was definitely looking at all of us like we were zombie apocalypse or something. She was just afraid. I couldn't just like slow it down. It's crazy out there. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, somebody has to do the Instacarting, right?
Yes. Listen, your daughter is providing a great service for many people, and it's not just the people that don't want to go out because they're just scared to get exposed. I mean, but the people who have their immune systems compromised. Yes. If you're bringing groceries to elderly people, and your daughter's young, and while it has been a narrative that this doesn't hit young people, it actually does. So yeah. there is some concern, but look, she's doing good for the country and she's making a couple of bucks while she's doing it.
That's the thing. So like people really need that service. And she is young, but she is a lifelong silent carrier of various things. Like she rarely gets sick, almost never. I can't even remember the last time she was sick. And even when she was sick, she didn't act like she was sick when she was little. Like she was a silent carrier of strep throat. So she would give it to her older sister. Like my oldest child was probably 7, 8, 9. Like she constantly had strep throat until we figured out that it's her younger sister that is a silent carrier. So I'm like, I don't know. You're a silent carrier of things. I don't know if this is the right thing for you.
Well, my question is, are you a hypochondriac? Could you talk yourself into, if you have a sniffle, thinking that you have the coronavirus?
Not for that. I'm waiting for like the headache, because that seems to be one of the things. I'm like anytime I have like a little twinge, I'm like, this is it. I'm waiting for some of those like the real cough where like your chest is like feeling. So far I've had a little bit of the just the regular allergy thing. You're like sneezing a little bit, which are not symptoms of coronavirus. So I'm like, when the headache hits or the body aches, that's when I think I might start freaking out.
I tried to talk myself into having it 4 or 5 days ago. I was feeling a little tightness in my chest as I was breathing.
Oh boy.
And so I figured, well, to make that go away, I'll just have a few drinks. So
or at least you'll forget about it.
Yeah, so I had a little bit of a dry cough and the tightness in the chest. Which could be coronavirus or a massive heart attack, now that I think about it. But so
great choices.
Right. So I still have my air mattress set up in my studio from when I was in self-quarantine. I just haven't taken it down. So I decided at about 4 a.m. to crash on that air mattress. Well, there wasn't a sheet on it or anything. I just had a blanket, and I woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning, shivering like crazy, going, oh, here are the chills. I got the chills now. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, you idiot. No, you're just cold because you're laying on a rubber mattress with no sheet on
That'll
it.
do it. That'll do it every time. Yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be very interesting to see when this is all over if people test positive for the antibody that never showed any symptoms. I don't know if they'll ever get to the point of testing that to see if people have built up immunity to it. But
I think they have wonder. That's part of how we battle it going forward, isn't it? If they can test people for the antibodies, if they can do that, then they can, okay, you can go free into the public, and it can kind of make some of the self quarantining go away, and maybe we'll get to the point where our economy can start back up again.
That would really be great, because what happened here since we last recorded here in Virginia, obviously Governor Blackface Northam, that we love so much, he's closed everything through June 10th. June 10th is now the new.
That seems quite excessive,
right? That's a long time. And I mean, that might be what's right. I don't know. But that's a really long time for businesses in my little town and the area, small businesses, to survive. That's impossible for them to survive. We can't do carry out of restaurants anymore, so restaurants can only bring the food out to your car. I'm pretty sure. I haven't gone anywhere where you can actually go in and order a meal, which is a change from just a few weeks ago. So that's a long time. I'm very concerned about this, like that there has to be that happy medium. My fear is that people that have already had it are going to be able to go out in the world, and the rest of us are going to be watching from our windows as they go about their normal lives and be like, I don't know what the answer is, Fingers Malloy. I wish I did, but June 10th is, today we're recording on April 2nd. That's a long time. That
seems ridiculous. You would think that, I understand, the Indiana deadline is coming up on Monday, and I believe the governor is going to make some announcement tomorrow, whether, how much longer that they're going to extend this stay and safe, or whatever. What are they calling it? Sit and spin. What are we doing here? What is this called again?
Stay in place. Safe at home, or stay in place. I don't know which one is right.
Stay in place. I don't know. But listen, I can understand a 30-day extension. Okay, let's see what it's like in May. But now you're just saying, okay, if you have any Memorial Day plans, forget about it. It's not going to happen. June 2nd, that just seems excessive to me.
Well, and you can't swim in the ocean. You can walk on the beach for exercise. I mean, it's really not a change particularly about how anything happens. It's just mandatory now, whereas it was a suggestion to do it before. So, you can't swim. Like, it's getting warm. The pools aren't going to open. All sorts of things are already being canceled. For things that my daughter was going to do over the summer are being canceled. I get it. We're lucky. We don't have, no one's sick. Nobody I know has, probably 1 or 2 degrees away from somebody that has it, but I don't know anybody that has it personally. And so far, so good with jobs. I work remotely anyway, so it's not. But it is a long time to think about.
You're seeing a lot of companies now making the decision. A lot of companies at the beginning were really being great to their employees as long as they could by extending full pay.
Yeah.
But now you're seeing the furloughs start, especially in retail. I believe Bed Bath & Beyond made the announcement today that they were going to put most of their employees on furlough. Kohl's, Macy's, JCPenney's. A lot of these retailers have said, okay, we can't do this anymore. We gotta, you can keep your health benefits, but we've got to lay you off. And now you're seeing different manufacturers make the decision that, hey, everybody's going to have to take a pay cut. People in media are really starting to feel the pinch. Reporters are getting laid off. I saw a major talk radio network announce that they were cutting staff and cutting salaries between 10 and 20%. So it's now really starting to sink in, and you can see by the unemployment numbers that have been released in the last
staggering.
It's just I don't know how easily it's going to be to just flip a switch and have everything go back to normal. That's not going to happen. It's going to take years to be able to recover from this.
Right. And what can a small business do other than take advantage of loans that the government is putting out there. But I mean, I wouldn't want to acquire debt. My husband thinks it'll be forgiven at some point. I don't know. I don't know if that's how this thing plays out or not. But right now, as a small business owner, do you take on debt so you don't have to fire your employees, even though you're bringing I'm thinking of just some of the local restaurants that we go to and we just love the owners and the staff there. Like, do you do that? Do you take on debt so you can pay somebody even though they're not able to work? That's a tough decision.
Well, do that or fold up shop. I mean, what do you do?
I don't know. I mean, the answer has got to be starting to reopen things at some point. And I mean, it's distressing because I saw some site, I'll have to dig it up and maybe put it in the show notes, but you can go by state to see, based on various data points that they're collecting by state, what the expected curve, is supposed to be for you. And for Virginia, we're not supposed to peak till mid-May in terms of cases and deaths.
Good Lord.
And then it doesn't really start to flat. The flat doesn't come till like July 1st. That's a long time.
Boy, and then it's expected that we're going to have a spike in cases in the fall again. So you just have to hope that between now and then, a vaccine is probably a fantasy by then. That's a little too quick. But if we have some sort of effective treatment,
well, that sound like maybe that's the key. I mean, I've seen a few medical professionals saying that this, whatever the combination of the Z-Pack and whatever the other thing is very promising, and some other things too. So, God, please let that be the case.
Yeah, I mean, if you just have people prescribe something and stay at home, or in an extreme case they have to go to the hospital, but it keeps them out of the ICU and off ventilators. If they find some sort of treatment that could at least improve treatment to where you wouldn't have to be worried about all these ICU beds, and that would be fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully the testing is getting better and it's identifying it earlier and earlier so that people don't get to a point where they need to get on the ventilator. They can take whatever measures they can to ward that off. Or I don't know what it looks like, but let's pray. It's such.
Are you allowed to do that now? I mean,
not in New York City.
Well, I saw between the New York City thing and God bless the Mr. Pillow guy.
Oh, that was
God in front of the White House press corps. Oh my goodness, you would have thought he was throwing acid in people's faces just because he was mentioning God a little too much for them.
Right. We can, applaud and retweet when Idris Elba says that it's Mother Nature taking her revenge on us for being awful. But if we say that we want to pray that this, passes quickly, that's, very bad indeed. That poor guy, he didn't deserve that. I don't know the whole Mike Lindell story, but I do know that seeing him at CPAC, he's a rock star. I mean, I think it's probably in popularity, maybe second only to Trump himself. The crowds that he had around him, I do remember he was right there by us where we were on Radio Row. The crowds and people were the women were, their eyes lit up and they're just staring at him adoringly. Like, that's a story that resonates with everyday Americans. So
we're living in strange days when a pillow manufacturer is a rock star.
He is a rock star, but he stars in his own ads, so that's what makes him a thing. I guess the only other popular person is this whole tiger whatever thing that's going on Netflix, but I haven't really delved too far in that. So you've been keeping up with that, like
the Tiger King or
Tiger
the Tiger
King? Yeah.
No, I
God forbid he's pro-Trump.
I've had several people beg me to watch this show, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
I don't think it's your thing. I don't know. I'm not all that familiar, but we're going to talk a little bit more about and later in the show about what kind of shows you like. But I don't strike. It doesn't strike me as that you would find it's funny. My daughter was watching, so I caught some of it, but I haven't really watched it, so I'm not sure of the full series of events that happened. But
well, apparently, what's her name? Carly B.
Cardi B. Look at you.
Cardi B. Excuse me, and talk about sounding like an awful right winger who knows absolutely nothing about current pop culture. I do know some things about pop culture, but Cardi B is not exactly in my wheelhouse. As far I don't think that when she writes a song, she thinks, man, if I can just get the middle-aged men to dig this.
Yes, you're her definite demographic that she's going for.
But apparently she tried to set up a GoFundMe for someone on the Tiger King.
And Joe Exotic, yes.
Yeah, and GoFundMe said, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, he's in jail. He hired someone to kill somebody. That's probably...
Ooh, spoiler alert.
Oh, yeah, I think everybody knows that. I think it's in the very first scene that he's, calling from jail. So, yeah. Well, I didn't want to do a spoiler alert, but yeah, that's. I don't think it's you, but I know that we're about to talk about some shows that are totally you. But before we do that, can we talk about our sponsor, BetterHelp? Because I know that you're not all that familiar with them. Is that correct?
No, I'm not. Please tell me about them.
Well, I have a question for you. Is there something that interferes with your happiness or is preventing you from achieving your goals? If so, BetterHelp Online Counseling is there for you. You connect with your professional counselor in a safe and private environment, and it's all online, and it's super convenient. You can get help on your own time and at your own pace. You can schedule secure video, and this is quite important in the day and age that we're living in. It's all video or phone sessions, plus you can chat and text with your therapist, and these are licensed professional counselors who specialize in a range of issues such as depression, stress, anxiety, relationships, which I think is probably kind of a thing that is important right now. Sleeping, trauma, anger, family conflicts, grief, self-esteem, all sorts of things. Everything that you share with the counselor is confidential. If you're not happy with the counselor that you get, you can change and request a new one anytime. No, there's no delay. There's no charge. You can just do that. It's no big deal. They have 3,000 U.S. licensed therapists across all 50 states. It's available worldwide. As I said, 4 communication modes: text, chat, phone, and video. You can start in under 24 hours. So if somebody's struggling right now, they could get in touch with somebody by tomorrow. It's available on desktop, mobile web, Android, and iOS apps. As I said, you can schedule video or phone sessions. Generally, it's weekly unless you need more. Right now, people might need a little bit more support. They have broad expertise in the network. Broad expertise in the, I can't read anymore. I'm sorry. Broad expertise in the network, which may not be locally available in many areas. So not everybody. Nobody can get out to see their therapist right now. So basically, if you need one, this is a great resource. There's financial aid if you're qualify. It's secure, it's convenient, it's professional, it's affordable. It's not a crisis line, so if somebody has an imminent issue, they got to call 911 for that. But it is a great resource, would you say, Fingers Malloy, in this day and age where everything's having to be done by video, phone, chat, texting, whatever. It's pretty cool.
It is really cool, and I'm not trying to make light of the situation because I think that that's a fantastic service. And especially when you hear reports of the National Suicide Hotline and how their calls have dramatically increased during this whole thing. People are out of a job. They're desperate. If people are suffering from depression or anxiety, the current environment can heighten those feelings.
Really, isolation.
Yes. So, no, that sounds like a great service. But I chuckled when you talked about relationships because we've heard people joke about how there may be a coronavirus baby boom, but what hasn't been mentioned will there be a coronavirus spike in divorces?
I know. I mean, it's hard. It's hard. It's you see aspects of your relationship that you just never could because it's such a weird, different circumstance. You're seeing everything in a different light. But what's cool about BetterHelp, I mean, other than it's very easy and convenient, and you can get financial help if you can't afford it right now, because honestly, your mental health is way, way more important. You gotta, even if it costs a little bit of money right now, I think it's important. But they have so much broad expertise, whatever that issue is, whether it's being isolated. Maybe I know a couple people that are, I mean, my mom is isolating by herself. I mean, it's like, God, how are you doing this? But it's nice that there's this really cool thing, and it can get started within 24 hours. And the area that you need to talk about, they're going to have somebody for you. And even better than that, because everyone is suffering financial issues right now, we have a code that people can use to get started. So the code is, get 10% off. The code is SmartGirl. So what you would go to is betterhelp.com/SmartGirl. And then you use the code SmartGirl. That gets you 10% off. You simply fill out the questionnaire to help assess your needs, and you get matched with a counselor you'll love right away. You can get started. And like I said, if you're not clicking with your counselor, you can change them. It's no problem. Find the person that's going to help you. I think it is the service that is needed right now. It's definitely the 2020 service of the year, and I'm happy that we have them as a sponsor. So go check out betterhelp.com. It's a really cool thing, and I think it could help a lot of people that are probably struggling right now. So to transition to our GenXish portion of this podcast, we talked concerts last week, which was very well received, to be honest. I heard from a lot of people who had really cool first concerts, like the Beatles. Who else? Like a lot of like the Who, Led Zeppelin. Like people had really cool first concerts. People had not so cool first concerts too.
Like me.
Like me too. Yeah, there was a gentleman on Ricochet, where our podcast is hosted, whose also first concert was Sean Cassidy. I was shooketh to find out that a guy went to see Sean Cassidy too. So,
well, how old was he?
Well, he was probably like mine. He was like 8,
Right.
9. Yeah. I think he probably went with his sister or something like that, so that was funny. But I thought this week maybe we would talk about sitcoms. And I thought about 70s, but I thought 80s is probably more of our time. 70s, I only watched what my dad watched. You know how it was back then, when there's one TV in the house, and it's whatever Dad wanted to watch is what you watch. So we only watched what he wanted to watch, and I don't really particularly remember what they were. So I thought we'd go 80s sitcoms, and I found a great list of top sitcoms from the 80s that I thought maybe we could go through and get your opinion on.
Okay, that sounds good, because like you said, one TV in the house. We had more than one TV, and we had cable. We didn't have, what was that? The magic box.
Super
what did you
TV.
say you had? Super TV. No, we had cable, so I could disappear and watch my own shows. In fact, I had a TV in my room, not to brag.
Oh my God. What?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I would sit back and see my favorite television show, and my parents, they weren't paying attention. God bless them, Gen X parents. Right?
We raised ourselves. It's fine.
Right. I would be up until 12:30 at night waiting for David Letterman to come on, back when he was on NBC, and
when he was funny.
Yes, I mean that show. And I know a lot of people on the right don't like David Letterman. I thought he was brilliant until the end, when he got, old man, let me cut your Nerf ball up if it lands in my yard, and turned into a crotchety leftist.
Right. 1980s David Letterman was a whole different ball game.
The show was brilliant. It was brilliantly funny. It was different.
Would they go to like the top of the rock and drop things from the top?
Yeah, they had a little tower that they would drop things, and they would have unusual guests like Brother Theodore and oddball people on, and it was just so good and so funny. That's to me, that was my go-to show in the 80s. And I know you're going to go through a list of sitcoms, and I'll get out of the way for that, but I just remembering back to those days and watching the old late night with David Letterman shows. I still pull up. I'll get caught up in a vicious cycle on YouTube, where I'll find a David Letterman late night from David Letterman clip from NBC will come on, and next thing you know, I've blown through 4 hours of watching old clips. So.
I know, and it's so sad to watch them. I mean, it's great to watch them, but then you're like, God, you couldn't get away with this now. Like everyone would be offended, and it was so funny. Even Johnny Carson. I mean, it was equally offensive to everybody, so nobody was offended.
Well, you didn't know their politics.
Yeah.
That was
Right.
so great about Carson. And I know you could say the same thing about Leno, but I wasn't a big Leno fan. But uh, Carson would make fun of Republicans and Democrats. And that was great. And you didn't know where he stood. And that's what I think was so great about the man. But now these new late night talk show hosts, it's almost demanded that they have to be
Well,
political
yeah,
pundits.
because the cancel culture will come for them if they don't.
Well, they were so mad at Jimmy Fallon, the wokety woke army, because he had Trump on and he humanized Donald Trump and pulled on his hair. And it's just like, he's an entertainer. Stop it. That's what he was supposed to do. But not in this day and age. They have to reject anything that comes across as conservative, or no, especially Trump. And it's funny to even say Trump and conservative in the same sentence. But
I know. It's a bizarro world that we're in.
yeah,
Well,
right.
the 80s sitcoms, I mean, now that you mention it, like, they didn't, I'm sure they politicized some stuff, but it really wasn't a major theme of most of these shows.
Mm-mm.
So maybe we jump in and look and talk about some of them. I'm just
Sure.
going off of it's 80skids.com. It's their top list, their list of top shows. So I'm just going to start with at their top, and we'll go down from there. I mean, they have 50 of them. We don't have to talk about 50 sitcoms. I'm sure I didn't watch 50, and it's cool because some of them were things that started in the 70s and carried over into the 80s. So that's cool. And some of them are more started in the 80s, but are maybe thought of more as a 90s thing. So their number one was Cheers, which I think is probably true for the 80s. I know I watched it, but I don't know that why I watched it really as a kid. Were you a Cheers fan?
Oh yeah, I loved Cheers. If you were going to tell me the top sitcom of the 80s, it probably would have been either Cheers, or, even though it started in the 70s, MASH would have been the other one that I would think would be the top sitcom.
It's on here somewhere. Yeah, no, it's definitely on here.
But MASH started in the 70s and it was just on forever. But I think at one point MASH had the top season finale or series finale.
It may still be.
Yeah.
It's definitely held that.
But
record for a long time.
I loved Cheers. And the funny thing was, it was one of those things, one of those shows where, Coach, I believe, died in real life.
Right.
And, you think, oh, how are they going to replace Coach? And then Woody Harrelson steps in and they don't miss a beat.
That's right. I forgot about that. There was the old guy that was on like the first season. But then they also changed from Shelly Long to Kirstie Alley too, which was like a big transition.
And I think the show was better with Kirstie Alley.
Really? I've heard a lot of people say that. It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have a whole lot to say. I know I watched it every week, but I don't know that it was I don't know that it really was. I don't know. It just wasn't one of those ones that where I was like, yeah, this shaped who I was as a person watching Cheers every week. Since there's so many on this list, I'm going to go.
Yeah, okay.
The second one, I know I did not watch, The Golden Girls.
Ugh.
I am certain I did not watch that because we were playing this little fun game over the weekend trying to guess the 80s sitcom theme, and so like, I don't know what this is. I don't think I even watched
the Golden
it.
Girls. I watched it, but it wasn't like the kind of show that I would have taped, on my VCR, or I wouldn't stop everything and run to the television because the Golden Girls was on. But I would watch it if I was in front of the TV flipping channels. It was okay, but again, I was in my what were does it say the years that it was on? I mean, you're talking a teenager. Teenagers weren't exactly interested in four old ladies telling,
It didn't say.
jokes.
It doesn't say what it was on.
Yeah.
It was not I feel like it was like a mid to late 80s maybe. I don't know.
And didn't they spin off Empty Nest? Wasn't Empty Nest?
I think so.
Wasn't Empty Nest like they were the neighbors or something? I can't remember.
And Kirstie McNichol was on it.
Oh, I loved her. Yeah.
Yes.
Those were the days. It was a simpler time.
Number 3, I'm sure you were a huge fan of Family Ties. Now, that one I did watch because obviously Alex P. Keaton, the Reagan conservative.
Did you have a crush on him?
No. But I did want to be Mallory, Justine Bateman. She was definitely, who you aspired to be more like. Even though she
Did
was
you want
that
a
smart.
boyfriend like Nick?
No, He was so punk rock, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, at least according to uh, Hollywood, that was what punk rock was.
It was a good premise though, like the two hippie parents, and then they produced the Alex P. Keaton character. That's
Yeah,
pretty good, pretty well
yeah.
done. And then there was the younger kid. Nobody knows who she was.
Tina Others.
Oh, you do know who she was. Did you have a
Oh, I don't
crush
remember
on
her character.
her?
No, it was Mallory. Everybody loved Mallory. Gosh, I
She
don't
was
even remember what Tina Yothers' character name was.
neither.
Uh,
Yeah, I don't know. I do not know. Yeah, she was definitely the goals. Okay, we talked a little bit about this before a couple weeks ago. Night Court is number 4. That's pretty high up there.
Marquee Post.
Yeah, the picture that comes with it, her hair is amazingly. It's a mullet, but it's like a feathered mullet.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a whole thing going on there. I don't have much to say. This is an interesting one. I guess Roseanne started in '88, so it's or '89 maybe. I'm trying to say what it
I
says.
can
because I
honestly
watched
say
it.
I have
Yeah.
not watched one episode of Roseanne in my entire life.
Really?
Oh, I never liked her as a stand-up comic. But again, I was a teenage boy. How am I going to relate to a show about a suburban housewife? I wasn't interested in it.
It was pretty good. No, in its heyday, it was good, but how it's turned out in the recent years is a horrible story of cancel culture. So everybody knows about that. Cosby, of course. Definitely watch Cosby because Denise character was basically my age and she was quite fashionable as well. So she was definitely, but it was funny. We love the Cosby Show.
Yeah, Jasmine Guy. Oh, that was another one. Loved Jasmine
Oh,
Guy.
she was on the spinoff.
Well, yeah, she was, on the spin-off. They gave her her own show and she was on the Cosby Show. Yeah, she was hot too. Those were
Laura
the days.
Howard.
It was a simpler time.
This one also I didn't really identify as an 80s, but I guess it is. Married with Children. Not my favorite for sure.
Oh, that was one that I would. I had to be home to watch Married
Oh,
with
of course,
Children.
yeah. I think more of a guy thing.
It was, of
maybe.
course, it was a more of a guy thing. I mean, poor Christina Applegate. And I shouldn't say poor Christina Applegate because that show made her a star and a millionaire. But I mean, they would dress her in. I mean, she looked like a stripper every
She
week.
really did.
So it was must-see TV for a teenage boy.
Okay. All right. I didn't. Yeah. No, I didn't watch that one. It wasn't one of my things.
I mean, Married with Children and The Simpsons pretty much put Fox on the map.
That's true. That's true. Now, I did watch the Tracy Ullman show, which what Simpsons made its debut on as like a little skit. Did you watch the
Yeah.
Tracy Ullman show?
No, but she was really talented. She was funny. I do you remember she had a pop hit.
Oh,
Do you
I
remember?
love that song. Can you
Oh,
sing it for me?
Man, I can't remember. I remember the video.
They don't know about
Oh,
us. They've never heard of love. Because she's got
Yeah.
Paul McCartney in the video.
Oh, I don't remember that. I just
She's in
remember
the
her
car with
walking-
Paul McCartney.
Oh, I don't remember that part. I remember her walking through a grocery store with like her hair all in curlers or something.
At the
Or am I
end, yes, yeah, no,
remembering?
you're right. But at the very end, she's in this like little teeny car, and Paul McCartney's in there with her. Yeah,
Wow, how did she pull that off?
It's Tracy Ullman. My God.
Well, that didn't mean much back then, did it?
Well, she had a show. She definitely did. She have a Fox? It was a Fox show.
Yeah, it was a Fox show. That's like you were
Yeah.
right. That's when the Simpsons was a little
Well,
short.
she's British. She probably, they've got probably the
Oh.
same manager or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Then there was MASH. That's also on the list, but I mean, I watched it, but I think it was probably way over my head.
Oh,
most
I
of the
watched
time.
MASH,
But I mean,
yeah.
obviously Hawkeye was fun. He was fun to watch.
But the MASH years, listen, with Trapper John, those were the funny years, and then it got all weird and
true.
sappy.
That's true. And now we know that Alan. I mean, he was probably always out with his politics. I don't think he was ever quiet about it. But now he's sort of obnoxiously loud and has been for many decades now. So it does make it a little harder for me to like it. So I don't ever watch the reruns.
Yeah, that's one of those things where it feels like a good idea in theory to turn it on, but then when you revisit some of these shows, you question why you thought they were funny to begin with. And I
That's
think
true.
Again, MASH. I thought MASH was really funny the first few years, and then it got all whiny and preachy. And
It was. It's a classic. It's just not rewatchable for me for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Then they have the Wonder Years, which I think also was kind of more towards the late 80s into the 90s, which is a great show. Just great.
I can tell you that's another show that I don't think I watched one episode.
Really?
Well,
That was great because it was kind of like they were the age of how my oldest siblings would have been. So it was just kind of fun because I'm like, yeah, I think that's kind of exactly how like my older sisters were. That was a great one. That was so good. I like things that are, throwbacks to another time period. That's fun. Then they had Happy Days. Everybody watched Happy Days.
yeah. Happy Days. You had Leather and Pinky Tuscadero, which was apparently my role on this show is just to point out the hot chicks that were on the show.
Well, did we say is
is
Leather,
that my role?
is she hot though? Susie Quattro, remember her? That's
Yeah,
who
she
the
was.
actress.
Well, yeah, that's one thing too, where maybe if I revisited it, I'd be like, oh, why did I have a little crush on her?
I
But at the
remember. Well,
time, oh,
Pinky was like va va voom.
yeah.
Yes.
Leather was kind of okay, we're gonna make her a Joan Jett
She
kind of.
was very Joan Jett-ish, but I don't, probably before Joan Jett was Joan Jett. But yeah, you're right. And then all I remember, I mean, not all I remember, but I just remember was there like the Malachi Crunch? What was the Malachi Crunch? Do you remember that one? They were doing some sort of, what is it when you take like old cars and you like,
Oh, the Demolition Derby.
yeah, they had the Malachi Crunch. I think the Fonz, did he get caught in the Malachi Crunch?
I think so,
Or
or maybe
two
it was
cars like
Pinky and
T-bone
they.
you? I can't remember.
Yeah, and then I think Pinky or Leather was in it, and they ran and pulled her out before they were in the
She got
Malachi.
Malachi crunched. But
Oh
then
wow.
I mean, I know way too much about stuff like this because I can't remember anything about history, but I remember all sorts of stupid details. She had a song. Susie Quattro was a singer, and she had "Stumbling In" as was her song.
Wow.
Yes. Oh, it's true. Oh, it's true. I know, but also having older siblings helped, because you had to listen and watch what they wanted to listen and watch. So I
Yeah.
learned those things. Next was Growing Pains, which of course gave us Kirk Cameron, who is now some sort of Christian conservative. I don't know if star is the right word. Personality.
Has he kind of distanced himself from the whole Growing Pains teen Tiger Beat idol kind
I
of?
think so. I think, as you get older, I think you probably chill out about this stuff. But I do think there was a point when he was sort of a younger adult where, yes, yes, it was terrible. It was a terrible show for showing promiscuity, and I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
remember any of that.
Well, I have to ask you a personal question
Uh-oh.
now.
No, I didn't think he was cute.
No, I don't care about that.
Okay.
Did you ever buy an issue of Tiger Beat?
Oh my God, yes.
For
Tiger
those who
Beat.
don't know Tiger Beat, explain what Tiger Beat magazine
It was just, I don't even think they allowed women into that, did they? It was all
I
just
don't think so.
teen heartthrob dudes. There was Tiger Beat, Teen Beat, and Bop, which were all very similar. I think Bop sort of would go outside the United States and get some more international stars in there, so it was a little more,
So you
global in
could.
appeal.
So a typical Tiger Beat cover could have a Kirk Cameron or a Scott Baio
Well, it
or
would have
Michael J.
one
Fox
main
on it.
star and then a couple smaller pictures of other people, to tease you, so you'd buy it. It always came with a pull-out poster in the middle, so you could always. I mean, and trust me, my room as a child was, or not as a child, as like a 12-year-old, 12 to 17, we'll say, was just one big, huge mural of Tiger Teen Beat things, and they were not terribly. The journalism in the issues was not that quality. Like it didn't go too in depth. It was what you might call fluff pieces about all of these idols, but it would definitely give you like the fan club address so you could join the fan club. It was all sorts of fluff information, but we didn't have the internet, did we, to get all the
No.
information. So we relied heavily on these publications. Plus, do you remember from you'd put your Scholastic book order in, you could get the Dynamite magazine?
No, I don't remember
You
that.
don't remember Dynamite magazine? It had the famous one with Farrah Fawcett on the front.
Oh,
Oh
is
my
that where that came
God.
from?
Well, not that picture, but a famous picture. You don't know
Mm.
Dynamite? Did you not have the Scholastic book
No, the only thing that I came close to with
at
any of those
school?
subscriptions, no, the only thing that
What?
oh, we had the Weekly Reader, but that was when I was really young.
You don't have
But
Scholastic book clubs where you put your book order in and they deliver books?
I don't remember that. The only thing I remember subscription wise was the Columbia Records Club, where you get
No. Oh
six
my!
records for a penny.
I am shocked. How does your school? Every school had the Scholastic
It
book order.
probably did. I just don't remember, and I didn't order any books.
Well, they had their
Reading.
monthly magazine was called Dynamite. And that was
Oh,
another way of possibly getting information about whoever you loved. But they didn't allow women, so I mean, I don't want to see Farrah Fawcett. That was not my thing. Yeah, well, totally got derailed there. But yes, Tiger Beat was, and he was quite heavily featured in Tiger Beat. I was more, I was I was starting to be a little older in my teens when Growing Pains was a thing, and it just,
and
But
you
I'm
had Sean
sure-
Cassidy.
I'm sure that you are a huge, or were, shall I say, huge fan of Alan Thicke's comedy.
Oh, I mean, who wasn't when you were in your teens,
When
right?
when you were in your teens. He's a funny guy, right? He was a funny
Yeah.
guy.
He's not with us anymore, is he?
He is not with us.
Oh,
No. Too soon. He definitely. And then he. Nope. I lost my train of thought on that one. The next one that they had was Three's Company. I watched it, but I was too young to understand that one too.
well, yeah, I watched that every week, and again, it was because of the women.
Well, then they had they were starting to, go a couple tiers down from Suzanne Summers after a while, right? Like they lost her, and then they had various other blondes, right?
Yes, they had. Oh gosh,
Jenna Lee Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
She was the dumb one. Well, they were all dumb, right? Like all the blondes were kind of dumb.
No, the one blonde was actually smart, and I can't remember her name, but she was a nurse, I think, if I remember correctly. And
So
she was,
I remember that. That was way later.
yeah, she was smart and she was pretty. But I mean, they were trying to replace Suzanne Summers, and there's no replacing Suzanne Summers.
No, she's still got it, man. Doesn't she post Instagram pictures of her taking baths outside and
Yeah, God bless her.
she did the Thigh Master. That was her thing in the 90s was to hawk
I think
the Thigh
she's
Master.
into human growth hormone too, or something. She's doing something where I can't remember what it is, but where she's got all the tricks to
She
stay
does, and she
young.
has sex 3 times a day with her husband, who's 89.
Oh, stop it!
Yeah. That's what she says
Oh, please.
with her 89-year-old husband.
Mm.
It could be true, right? It could. That's definitely could.
Well, I mean,
happened.
Hugh Hefner, that he would probably claim that, back when he was still alive, that he was doing that 3 times a day. So I mean, I guess it's possible.
I know. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Let me see. Who's the Boss? Taxi. Those were good.
Love
And he's on
Taxi.
both of them. Tony Danza.
Yeah, love Taxi because I was a big Andy Kaufman fan.
Yeah.
So, Taxi was fantastic, and Andy Kaufman was a genius.
They put WKRP in Cincinnati on there, which I think of more as a 70s thing.
Yeah, I would think that's more of a 70s show, too. And that's another show that was really good the first couple of years, and then the quality of that show just kind of...
I don't remember that. It was funny, though. I always remember the episode where they had like a police... Who was Howard Hessman? What was that his name?
Dr. Johnny Fever.
Yeah, Dr. Johnny Fever was doing a thing where he was drinking alcohol and they had like a cop in there to test his reaction time and it got faster.
Yeah.
That's what I always think of.
Well, and of course, they had the famous Thanksgiving Day
that
episode
was
where
funny
they dropped
too.
turkeys out of a helicopter.
I should rewatch some of that because I probably missed a lot of the humor on that one too. But I did. I thought that one was funny.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good one. Full House. Nah. Designing Women. Definitely.
Yeah, that's
missed that.
another one that was not in my wheelhouse.
I have some things on here that I don't consider.
What was this? Would you consider Designing Women to be the Sex in the City of the 80s?
I mean, definitely much more family friendly.
Was it? I had no idea. Was it family
yeah.
friendly?
Oh, yeah,
Designing
yeah, yeah.
Women?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It was wholesome, good humor.
Oh,
It was
then it's
great. It
nothing
was,
like Sex in the City. Then.
but it was like for women that weren't like none of them were. They were mostly single. I think one of them did get married, but it was like them with their various relationships. They were different ages, and it kind of was. It kind of was
But a
that,
clean version.
but a
of
very
Sex.
clean version, just
Yeah.
southern and funny. I liked
Mm.
it, but I'm sure you didn't. They had Alf, which I didn't watch. They don't know why they have Moonlighting. I don't think Moonlighting was a sitcom.
Moonlighting was a dramatic comedy.
There's,
There were funny moments, but that was another show that the first couple of years it was
oh
great,
yeah,
and then they got Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis to be the
yeah.
sexual tension was funny, but then when they actually became a couple, it just eh.
Yeah, they also have the Dukes of Hazzard. That's not a sitcom.
No, I
I'm
didn't
trying
think
to
that was.
find some that you might have watched. Benson.
Yeah, I watched Benson.
What else? Soap. Soap was definitely scandalous in my household. I can remember being absolutely forbidden from watching Soap, but I know that my
Well,
older siblings did.
I was gonna say, did your dad watch Soap?
No, no, but I know my older sisters did. But I was definitely that was very scandalous. The plot lines were too much for my household. I don't remember too much about it though. I do remember that guy that had the he was the ventriloquist, Mr. Belvedere. Some of
Yeah,
these
that's
are.
one I don't remember watching. It's like Mr. Belvedere, I think, and Webster were on back to back.
I
If
think you're
remember.
right. I think that's true.
And I just never got into Mr.
I
Belvedere.
cannot even believe that they have chips on here. That's ridiculous. What was sitcom about
Sitcom.
chips?
I mean, it's one of those things where they may have had one or they would have the wacky ending, where something funny would happen and they'd have, the 45 seconds of them going off and they would pause and get reactions from each other. And
Well, that's when they'd stop too. Like at the very end of the show, they'd stop it with like them smiling and then
yeah,
speed it up again. It's
that's hardly a sitcom.
no, but Tracy Ullman show makes it in on this list. It says it was on 87 to 90.
Really? I didn't think it was on that long.
It ran on Fox between 87 and 90, and it featured choreography by Paula Abdul. So there's a lot of really crappy stuff. 227, Kate and Alley.
You don't remember 227?
You know what they have at 49? What's Happening? Did you watch What's Happening with Raj?
And I watched 227.
I didn't watch 227, but
227 was a comedy with Marla Gibbs and her family.
I
Don't you
do
remember?
remember. I didn't watch that, but I watched What's Happening.
I watched What's Happening. That was a great show. See, that's another show where I wonder if much of that bled from the 70s into the 80s. It's just like Sanford and Son. Was Sanford and Son on in the 80s?
It says here that it was that What's Happening was on from 76 to 79. Is loosely based on the film Cooley High.
Well, wait a minute. How is What's Happening on it if it was on from 76 to 79?
Well, because then it had a sequel series called What's Happening Now. That was
Now.
on 85 to 88.
Yeah, what's happening?
Rerun. Remember Rerun? Rerun was
Yeah,
the best.
Raj.
And then
Yeah.
Dee, she was so obnoxious.
Mm.
The sister Dee. Ugh, she's the worst.
I'm trying to think of any show that was really big that you haven't mentioned. What about, was Frasier a 90s show?
I think probably 90s.
Yeah.
Definitely
Yep.
had 90s clothing.
Yeah, because Cheers went into the mid 90s, didn't it?
I think
mean, that was on
definitely the
forever.
early 90s, yeah.
So yeah, and then
I mean,
Frasier.
I didn't mention all of them. Like Newhart was on
Oh, I love Newhart.
because it had the guy. This is my brother Daryl.
Yeah,
This is
my other brother Daryl. Yeah,
That was always
that was a
good.
great show.
That was good. And the ending, the season or the series ending,
Yeah.
very good. Yeah, we
And
had good stuff.
God bless Bob Newhart. I think he's still alive, isn't he?
I'm not. I can neither confirm nor deny this.
He
what's-
is still alive. He's 90 years old.
Good for him.
He's unfortunately, I mean, we just had Don Rickles pass recently.
Yeah.
There aren't
We're
too many of
losing
the not too many of the old school comedians left.
That is too bad. But in hindsight about these '80s shows, you know how it seems like the trend has recently been like, do you have the dumb dad and the smart kids? Like it was not. I mean, there maybe was a little bit of that back then, but it was kind of like there were a lot of strong moms, of course. But I hate the trend that's there now. I hate watching. It's every single thing that my kids watch is the stupid dad. The dad's dumb. He's a bumbling idiot. And the kids, they're super smart. They're smarter than everybody. I don't know. I don't like that trend. I think it was good in the '80s. The parents were the strong figureheads. We're old. That's what it comes down to. We're old.
You just get off my lawn. You just told Hollywood to get off your lawn.
No, I'm supporting your gender here.
Well, I appreciate it. I really do, because obviously I've noticed that too. I notice it more in commercials where the dad is a complete nincompoop, a complete moron, and then there's the missus there to save the day, and the kids.
She's way smarter, and the kids are way smarter than the parents. The kids should control everything. So no, that's not how this works. So yeah, it's always fun to go down memory lane. I guess there was some good stuff in the '80s. It's pretty good. It was all right.
But if you were going to pick 2 shows to revisit out of that whole list,
Lord Almighty,
if you're going to binge watch 2 shows, what?
That's a good one. I'm scrolling back through.
I think Cheers.
I don't know if I watched Cheers, but I think since I was really, I don't know. Do you think Soap would hold up? Because
Maybe.
I was not allowed to watch much of it. As I got older, I was able to. I wonder if that would do it. Not Murphy Brown. Maybe Designing Women. I loved that show. Maybe Taxi. Do you think Taxi would?
Yeah, I think to me it would be Cheers and Taxi would be the 2 I would probably revisit.
Can you even find Taxi anywhere? I'll have to see. That was
got
funny.
it somewhere.
And I don't even know how old I would have been when that was on, but pretty young.
Oh yeah.
All of these shows that we didn't get any. We didn't understand them, so we should rewatch them. We should assign people to rewatch things and report on for us. Anyway, I know you have other things to do because this quarantine has you hopping apparently.
Business is booming for the king of small media.
That's true. I mean, this is a great time for people to do podcasts and videos and things like that. I've been trying to convince you to do video. I just don't know how to do it. It was sort of supposed to be like, hey, Fingers Malloy, do you want to figure out how we can do video? But you didn't really take it that way. So
no, you said, you hit me up and you said, we should do video this week. I was like, great. You know how to do that? No. Well, then we shouldn't do video this
How
week.
does everybody know how to do video?
Oh,
I really wanted to do live, but I can't. I mean, you do it with your show with Tony Katz when you can. Obviously, you can't be at a restaurant right now doing a show live, but I thought I love that you guys do that. I think that's really cool. I think that makes you you connect with your audience probably a little bit better that way when they can see you guys recording. So
it is fun to do things live. When I was part of the old FTR radio and we would do the Snark Factor, we would do that 5 days a week at 8:00 at night, and we didn't do video, but we did the radio show live, and we had a chat room, and we have 40-50 people in the chat room, and you could go back and forth with people, and that was a good time. So it is cool to do live stuff where you can get instant feedback from people who are listening.
Yeah, no, you look like you have fun with that. I mean, I think it would be really fun to do in person. You were inspiring me to try and take the Smart Girl, I'm here in the DC area, take it to various places, but alas, that was not to be. Maybe later this year we can get that going. But I think I like that idea. I'd like to move towards more of that because that's otherwise, how are you going to interact with your audience? Let them ask you questions and figure out what they like to do. So I'd like to figure out how to do video. I don't know.
We'll get it figured out.
It's the time. Is there any better time right now to try and launch something like that? Though everybody needs some stuff to consume because I don't know, man. I'm running out of things on Netflix.
Well, and the thing is, too, I think we're getting to the point I've noticed it the last 7 days or so with my podcasting is the numbers are down a little bit because people are so coronavirused out.
That is true. Yeah.
That I think that there needs to be content out there that isn't 100% coronavirus all the time. I mean, you have to talk about it. It's part of everyone's life right now. If you're in the United States and really around the world now, and when you're
It's
doing a
life.
podcast,
It's just everyday life now. I mean, everyday life isn't like it used to be. Everyday life is run by COVID-19.
right? So,
It's hard to
but I
avoid
think
it.
people are looking for content. Because you're right, they're running out of shows to binge watch on Netflix, but maybe you just need to find stuff that isn't coronavirus throughout the entire show. So
Yeah.
no, you're right. This is a good time to be a content provider, whether it's podcast or video podcasts or whatever.
Yeah, we'll work that out.
Yeah.
I just need to figure. I mean, I was trying to figure out how to do Facebook Live. Facebook has apparently made it very difficult to do it. Not impossible. There are some workarounds, but we'll figure it
We'll
out.
figure it out.
So, about your media empire, what are other places that people can listen? Where can they find you and get all that good scoopage?
Well, if you go to fingersmalloy.com, you'll see all the podcasts I'm affiliated with. Eat, Drink, Smoke with Tony Katz. We eat the fine food, smoke fine cigars, drink the fine bourbon. And
How much
we
do you miss it?
well, we're still doing it, but we
I
are
mean, miss doing it that way, where you're eating.
we don't do it at the bar. Yeah, that stinks. It's really cool to be able to do a show every week from the bar. But unfortunately, that's on hold. Hopefully, not for as long as your governor thinks it should be. But
June 10th, baby.
yeah, that's on hold for now. But we're still releasing podcasts. We're still doing timely content there. We're just figuring out different ways to record it. I also do a podcast called Enough Already with my good friend Tracy L. Connors. And of course, I host the Snark Factor on Wham Talk 1600 AM, 92.7 FM in Ann Arbor, which you can hear Sunday mornings. And all those podcasts are available at fingersmalloy.com.
Well, look at you. And any social media where people can follow you, engage in conversation, ask you questions, send you money.
At Fingers Malloy, that's the Twitter handle. Go to fingersmalloy.com Facebook.com/Fingers Malloy Radio for the Facebook page and tell me why Taxi wasn't one of the best shows.
Nobody's going to say that. I've never heard anybody that doesn't like Taxi that actually watched it. If you watched it, you loved it. Well, yes, this was it's fun to talk about things from childhood. It's just such it's a nice relief from everyday life. Of course, people can find Smart Girl Politics at facebook.com/smartgirlpolitics. And we are on Twitter at official SGP. And I'm on Twitter at Terry Christoph, but nobody ever pays attention to me. So I'm like, why am I even bothering tweeting? It's if you're not like a blue check with 100,000 followers and work for the New York Times, apparently no one will talk to you anymore on Twitter. So, but please come talk to me. I'll answer because nobody talks to me. I'm over in a corner by myself. That's how it is.
That's the spirit.
On that happy note, woohoo! Thank you everybody for listening. Thank you Ricochet for housing the podcast. You guys are the best. And if you haven't checked out Ricochet, go over and check out ricochet.com. If you're a conservative, it's polite conversation, but not that polite. But you should check it out. I think that's it. We'll have to think of some fun thing to do next week when we talk our Gen X stuff. But have a good week, Fingers. I'll talk to you next week.